All right, welcome everyone. I'm here with TheRealSamPrentice. You have to know who this guy is. I want to ask him some questions because he knows a lot more than I do. Sam, I printed the same thing out of 4 different filaments.
Sure.
I have only used PLA before. PLA we know.
Yep.
Why do we use PLA so much? Why is...
Well, it's fairly easy to print. It's polylactic acid, so it's basically like cornstarch. In some respects, it's biodegradable. I know there's been a lot of tests with that, but if you put it into a heated chamber and you basically turn it, it will degrade very fast. So this is kind of like probably one of the most eco-friendly filaments you could probably use. Okay. Super easy to print.
It's pretty much all I've used.
Yep.
Until today, actually, that's all I've used.
Okay.
And it works good, but it's got downsides.
Yep.
If you go out in the sun, it will degrade.
Can do. Yep.
Okay, so.
Yep.
That's why we use PETG.
Yeah, and again, you know, it depends what the mix is of the plastics. There are a ton of things that people do now to PLA to make it strong. So you've got PLA plus.
Carbon fiber.
Exactly
yeah,
right. So
you,
you can infuse those types of filaments and make them stronger now.
But the PLA carbon fiber requires a hotter temperature nozzle.
Can do.
The PLA, basic PLA, pretty low temperature, like 200 degrees, and it's
or less in some respects. Yeah. Or if you have the Hyper series like they have at Creality, then depending on what you want to do. So, so we're seeing a real fundamental change now in filaments.
So are people not using PETG anymore?
I used to use PETG all the time.
Really?
That's all I used.
Is it stronger, or was it stronger?
I felt that it was, and then I saw tests for you know, the robotic stuff that I do, where actually PLA ended up being stronger in the long run.
Because I had to write on the back, I cannot tell the difference.
No, it's very similar. Very, very similar.
And my print is actually better on the PLA, isn't it?
I would say so.
I did these both on the K1, and you can see I got a little problem there on the PETG.
Yeah, that looks like heat, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just used the basic default settings on my K1 and printed all 4 of these.
Gotcha.
And I've never done PETG before. It's my first print ever. And it's not as good as the PLA.
But you can feel the difference.
Yeah.
You can feel the difference. And of course, you know, you get a stringiness. So you got to play.
I can see it even.
Sometimes you got to play with the retraction settings to get that right. And it's all about dialing in your filament to whatever you're using.
Yeah. So if you were using it a lot, of course you would mess with it and it would get better. I cannot feel the difference. Like the strength of it, they feel about the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Then I went with ABS.
Sure.
ABS, I read, I mean, I didn't open, this is a beautiful print.
Yeah, it's nice.
I am super impressed with the quality of that. Like I said, default settings, my first time ever.
Yep.
I didn't open the door because I did read that you have the heated chamber.
Yep.
Don't let any cold air in. So it requires hotter temperature.
Can do. I mean, sometimes you get a bit of lifting on the corners.
Yeah.
So depending on how you print it. But yeah, I mean, to be fair with you now, I mean, ABS has still come a long way. ABS typically is what you'd find in like Lego bricks. So if you want something that's going to be pretty bulletproof, printing it in ABS is still the go-to for people that are perhaps doing engineering projects and things like that.
What temperature does it print at? Higher temperature, like 260 or?
Can do. Again, it depends on what the mix is. So there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of evolved exotic filaments now that you can use all sorts of different temperatures. High and low temperatures will do different things.
So when you buy your filament, you basically have to know what temperature so you can set the settings.
Well, the good news is normally it's written on the spool.
Yeah.
So, and again, this is why really and truly, when you get something new, you should probably just do a test print.
Right.
And as much as I hate to say about benchies, but any kind of test print really, you know, even if you're doing retraction testing and things like that, just to get that tuned, so ultimately you get a better quality of print.
And I didn't do a raft on this or anything. I got no lifting on the corners. Like it is a...
I'm really surprised.
That looks really good.
That does look nice. That looks nice.
I thought I was going to have problems with the ABS because I was really nervous about it. Printed it just beautifully.
That's amazing.
Then I did TPU.
Yeah.
I did get lifting on the corners. You can see it curved.
Yeah.
And I'll show close-ups to the camera, but...
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean...
TPU is soft. It's spongy.
Yep.
So it definitely has its use cases, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, certainly I would use TPU if I was using maybe something like a tire or if I was using a track and it needed to have that kind of flexibility. Or if you're doing something that, you know, maybe you're making a hinge or you're making something that just needs to have a little bit of give in it, that would certainly be the route forward. But I mean, you could use this for pretty much anything. And the other thing is, you know, hardened TPU. So a lot of the time I'll do something, maybe if I do a track or if I do a tire, I want that to be spongy. So maybe I'll do less infill, but you can really make this rigid and hard. So if you're putting a gearing system together, but you still want it to have a little bit of give, like the real small amount of give. And again, of course, they do lots of different things now where perhaps TPU and ABS will have a blend. So you get both properties and the positives of those both properties as well.
Okay, so messing with the infills also could make it stronger, less spongy. Yeah, I
Totally.
never thought of that.
Yep, absolutely.
So I guess I have to do more printing in ABS and in TPU. I thought ABS has got a little bit of a smell, right?
It does, yeah.
So
yeah, there's a they call it VOC. There's a VOC setting to it, so it does give off an odor. Of course, the K1C now has a carbon fiber filter inside of it, so that will certainly help. But yeah, I mean, generally when I'm printing in my house or the rooms that I print in, it's generally PLA or PETG. You know, ABS is known, but again, you know, read the packaging, make sure you know what you're getting involved with.
So it depends what you want to print. It depends on your printer settings.
Yep.
You have to know the filament that you're going to print with.
Yep.
But there's so many different options.
There is so many. I mean, again, day on, day out, I see new filaments coming out into the market, and there are some crazy applications that you can use now. And it all really depends and boils down to, as you know, I do a lot with robots and robotics and stuff. So those materials are core into that integrity of, you know, if you're printing a head and it needs to be light, you can get a PLA that's basically like foam now. It will foam as you print, and again, you'll just sand that off, and it's extra super light, like 50% lighter than you'd find on a normal PLA print.
Oh my God.
And again, depends on the density, what you want to put inside of it. If you want to put servos into something, then yeah, maybe PETG or an ABS print might be better for that. But to be honest with you, now PLA is so high tolerant.
So, I mean, my channel, I feel like I'm trying to really aim for beginners.
Sure.
Like, I want to be basic, because I'm a beginner.
Sure.
I've only been printing for less than a year. If you had advice for beginners, would you say stick to PLA?
I would. Yeah, I mean, PLA, PETG, again, try it though. That's the thing, you know. I would try these different things, and I remember doing my first ABS print, and I was like, hey, you know what? This came out really nicely. And again, I think once you get into you know, the vibe of doing what you're doing, and you understand how the filaments work, then you're going to just have a good time with it.
Yeah, I've been printing for 8 months, and I've exclusively used PLA. I feel like I haven't learned enough yet.
Sure.
So I'm not into another filament, but there's lots of options out there.
There is. I mean, you go back 8 years when I first started, you didn't have much of a choice. You had ABS or you had PLA. That was it.
Wow.
So, you know, now you've got nylons, you've got flexibles, you've got all kinds of
fibers.
Yeah,
I know.
amazing amount. The way the filament, and again, I keep saying this all the time at the moment, but the Hyper Series filaments, they have a low melting point, so you can move faster. So the machines that are doing 600 millimeters per second, you can still retain the quality, but the melting point is much less. But again, at what you know, ultimately, at the end of that, what do you get? Do you get something that's less strong than something that's printed using a different PLA? And again, that's going to be down to your testing.
So if you have an older machine, there's no point getting Hyper PLA.
None.
Because Hyper PLA is really only for the new machines that are set like 500, 600 millimeters per second.
That's it. Yep.
And if you have a new machine, you can't go that fast without the Hyper PLA. If you use regular PLA, your speeds are going to be slower.
So a lot of the time, I have done quite a few tests now on printing at, you know, the Creality test where they do the long side and then they do the intricate elements. So you go from, I don't know, 600 millimeters per second right the way down to maybe 220. For those, you'll see on the curvature of the lines, if you print in anything other than Hyper Series PLA or Hyper Series whatever the latest one is, you'll find that it will start to delaminate and you'll just get you get separation straight away. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, thanks a lot, Sam.
Cool, man.
I really appreciate it.
No problem.
SamPrentice, the real SamPrentice. I've got him here.